Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Game Over Vancouver. My name is Mark Sianquita, and today we are joined by none other than Canucks Clay. Today was an interesting game. It was a roller coaster of emotions. Um, and tonight's Clay and I will definitely break down everything for you guys. But first and foremost, Clay, how are you doing tonight?
I'm okay, Mark. I would be a little better if the Canucks had won. They got a point. That's the optimist in me speaking. They gave away a couple points. That's kind of the pessimist in me speaking. But roller coaster of emotions is a perfect way to describe it. And I guess my biggest takeaway, though, is if we struggle this much, if we have to pull out a goal with 2 seconds left to tie the St. Louis Blues, I don't know if it bodes well for an actual playoff run. I know we beat Winnipeg. We can talk about that too. But I don't know. There's just a couple concerns that I had tonight, despite us getting a point and still being in the mix, obviously.
True. But yeah, lots to talk about tonight, especially with the Western Conference wild card race. But before we shift into this episode, please shift into Hyperdrive and get ready for a fun ride with your go-to source for all of the biggest stories in hockey, delivered with a unique blend of Quebecois flair. Hyperdrive Hockey brings you top tier analysis, the latest news, pop culture, and a lively atmosphere that sparks debate, gets you thinking, and keeps you entertained. Join Max, Daphne, and Kevin every Monday and Thursday for your dose of everything hockey. Watch on YouTube, on the Game Over Network channel, or subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon. For more, visit our website at thegameovernetwork.com. First and foremost, before we get started with the game analysis, I want to say welcome to everyone in chat, especially those coming from Clay's channel. It's always fun being in Clay's chat, so I always enjoy having him in the Game Over chats as well. To go over just like the game in chronological order, before the game started, we were coming off of a big win against the Jets, and I think I could speak for you, Clay, and for the rest of the Canucks fan base. After that game, we were on such a high, and that you know what, these last few games going into the postseason, we were starting to look like a playoff team for once, and we didn't change much from last game. It was the same lines, except for the fact that Garland was subbed onto the lineup, except for Lakirimaki, as well as No Mancini yet again. And it was a really slow first period, I will say, at least for the Canucks end. The Canucks were very strong on the offensive zone for the first 2 minutes, and then the Blues just dominated for the rest of it. The only, I guess, standout that I wanted to point out in that first period for the Canucks was Kevin Lankinen. I feel like without Lankinen, that first period very much could have been 3-0 Blues. But how did you think about the Canucks in that first period?
Yeah, you always worry about a letdown after such a big win over Winnipeg. People joking, hey, maybe this wouldn't be a bad first round opponent after all. Yeah, sure, whatever. So you do worry for a bit of a letdown, but you're right. The first couple shifts, it didn't result in a lot of scoring chances, but they certainly, you saw that they're ready to go. They're pumped. They knew the importance of the game. And even as St. Louis took over, and yes, they did outshoot Vancouver 12-3 by the time the period ended. Yeah, St. Louis was the better team for sure, but I didn't feel like the Vancouver Canucks were outclassed or anything. But you're right. Whether you call it dull or tight checking, heavy hitting, it was intense, but it wasn't the most exciting. I guess there weren't, I don't know what the advanced stats say, but there weren't a lot of big scoring chances. But anytime there was one, it was in the Canucks end, and Lankinen did come up big. So, yeah, it was good. And then the Canucks played them basically even for the rest of the game after that. But it was nice to escape, if you want to use that word, the first period with in a tie. But certainly, I don't know. I don't think the teams were tentative, Mark. I certainly think you could tell both teams knew the gravity, the importance of this game. And it was almost like they didn't want to make a mistake. I think that's the kind of feel I had.
Oh, 100%. I
Yeah.
completely agree, especially considering that, I mean, to your point, both teams came out as physical and as ready to go. Sorry about that. My headphones are connecting in and out. But yeah,
It's
both
a
teams came out at wanting to make a name out of themselves early. The Canucks, even though they only had 3 shots in that first period, 2 of those shots were in the first 2 minutes. Uh, but moving on to the second period, it was very, very, very similar to the first until late into the second, where it was a beautiful, I will say, a beautiful tip in by Quinn Hughes. Unfortunately, it was to her own net. Like I was watching the replays, I'm like, oh man, if this was on the offensive zone, it would have been nice. But we second period, other than that unfortunate tip in by Quinn Hughes, we were 1-0 going into the third. And was it, I mean, me personally, I was watching that game. I was watching it. Everyone was pretty neutral. Like there wasn't too many mess ups by the Canucks. Even though we were playing a normal dump and chase, we weren't really chasing, just dumping. But there wasn't really like a standout that played poorly nor played amazing, except for Lankinen again. Do you agree with that sentiment though?
I do, and I saw a bit of sentiment too, Mark, on Twitter, especially as the game got towards the end of the third in overtime. And of course, we love Quinn Hughes. We would be completely lost without him for sure. We wouldn't be anywhere close to where we are. But there was a sentiment, and I even felt it too after I saw the sentiment, and then I looked for it. I would never ever call him a selfish player. He always tries to create, which is generally 90% of the time good. But I did think there were a couple times today where, remember at the end of his 3-minute shift, where he just kept bombing the puck as opposed to looking for a pass. In overtime, he I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but he kind of shot on a 2-on-1 where he could have probably made a better play. And that last sequence where him, Besser, and DeBrusk couldn't even gain the line, and then DeBrusk goes for a sloppy change, and Besser's, I'm not blaming him. He was way too far behind Broberg. He wasn't going to catch him, but you want to see a bit more of an effort there. But I'm certainly not blaming Brock. He scored 2 goals, and he's the only reason why we got a point. So all to say, I agree with your sentiment that we played pretty straight up for the second, third, and OT. But where there's some guys, no one stood out poorly. I'd say Besser was a standout in a good way, positively. But this is the kind of game where you want Hughes to be a difference maker. I'm not crapping on him at all because he's the best player we have. But you're right. The inadvertent tip in, I don't know what he was doing. Actually, you usually let Lankinen try and just stop that, right? But it wasn't crazy. The first one goes off of Hughes. The second goes off of DeBrusk, and the third one goes off of Meyer's stick, which I didn't like his play diving to the middle either. I don't know what he was doing there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay. You know what? Let's fast forward to the third Blues goal.
Sure.
I don't have the same technology that Clay has on his streams, but let me recreate it for you guys as much as I can. So, the Blues leave the defensive zone. I believe it was a 3-on-2 or 2-on-2. And Myers, who is supposed to be a right-handed defenseman playing on the right side, once the Blues bring it into our zone, instead of marking his man, instead of marking Dylan Holloway, he decides to play towards the puck, right beside, I believe it was Quinn Hughes.
Yep.
Yeah, so he plays right beside Quinn Hughes, leaving Dylan Holloway open on the left-hand side of the offensive zone and scores. And I think I remember seeing a stat where if Tyler Myers plays good, we win, and if Tyler Myers plays bad, we lose. And like I think seeing that goal, all hope I had in this game was lost, because I'm like, okay, this is not going to be a good game for us. But yeah, like going to at least like your point about this game being a roller coaster of emotions, just to bring it back a little bit more into the beginning of the third, and really quickly, I'm very thankful that chat is very active right now. I'm gonna go through each and every comment in just a bit as soon as we finish recapping the game. But what a snipe by keeper Sherwood early in the third. Oh my gosh, I forget that we signed this guy to be a grinder essentially. We signed him because of how tough he was on Quinn Hughes, and he just lets one rip from the top of the right hand face off the circle, and what a shot! What do you think,
Yeah,
Clay?
it was great. It was great. Sherwood, I joke around on my shows, Mark, that I don't know if you notice it, he doesn't pass a lot. So he'll come into
Mm.
the zone, he'll create with speed. Unlike Hito, who goes so fast, he's out of control. He doesn't know what he's going to do. At least Sherwood, I think, knows what he's going to do. But what he's going to do is shoot. Like that's what he likes to do. So I had no problem. This one, he took the pass from Hronik, a really nice pass set up, and he popped out right instead of Hronik and Marcus Pettersson playing pass on the blue line. They kind of rotated, and Sherwood popped out. And yeah, a really good shot. He's got a good wrist shot, a good snapshot. And I know I screamed pretty hard, and that was very early in the first period, third period, and I thought it was a great goal. And then now you knew we're in for a game. Now we're all square with basically a whole period to go.
Oh, of course, 100%. And you know what? Soon after, another snipe from the same spot by Brock Besser, and
Yeah,
what a shot to hit his 200th goal. Like I won't lie. I've been very critical about his game, especially since it's a contract year, and in the contract year, you want to play as hard as you can to get a higher contract. And I think this game definitely solidifies that the Canucks need to resign him because, sure, I completely understand that he was slacking in the beginning of the season because I made this analogy like beforehand, Clay, where imagine a workplace where the person that your boss is bagging on the most is your workplace best friend. And
right.
obviously, if your workplace best friend is, and to everyone in chat, I'm talking about JT Miller. If JT Miller comes to you every single time, every single game, after every single practice and complains, obviously your morale is going to suck too.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously everything that he tells you, you're going to feed off of that energy and you're not going to want to play. And at the end of the day, like, JT Miller got traded. I'm going to use the analogy that he got fired at same aspect where Besser started to quiet quit. Like, he would do the bare minimum in terms of what's asked, and he would, like, sure, he scored goals before this, but a lot of them were tip-ins.
Right.
But this game completely solidified the fact that I feel like management, like, talked to him, and it was like, you know what, we still trust you. We still trust you that you're going to hit all of your sales KPIs and whatever. And it was vintage Besser.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've missed seeing Besser just snipe it instead of
Yep.
looking for rebounds. And this game, like, that goal plus the game tying goal with 2.5 seconds left, was it? Yeah, two and
Yep.
a half seconds left. I miss seeing this Besser, man.
Yeah.
It was nice.
That analogy of the workplace best friend and stuff, that's pretty good. I haven't thought of it that way. I break it down even more simpler is he didn't do this intentionally, but it almost looks like he played poorly until the trade deadline so he wouldn't get moved. And now, yeah, his last two games have been unreal. Whatever, 5 points over the past two games, and I want to see more of it. I want him to be a big piece of a big part of our playoff push here. But yeah, it's night and day compared to even just 2 weeks ago. It's pretty crazy that way.
Of course. And yeah, I use analogies a lot whenever I explain stuff just because I used to work with kids and that's the only way that they'd understand it.
Yeah.
So whenever I say it, it's kind of like I don't understand it, so I'll change it up for me. Anyways, let's talk about overtime.
Yep.
How do we say this? I think we were lucky at first when I forget who it was on the Blues, but I think we were lucky that Kevin Lankinen was covering the puck with his glove to the point where the camera couldn't see it.
You think that was
Because
in?
I think it was in, but
do
I
too.
think I think it was in. I'm not gonna be delusional and say that it didn't cross the line, but I think it's so smart that Kevin Lankinen, especially, because I think this was the third time he's done it. He will he will cover the puck exactly to the point where the camera can't see.
Yeah. Yep.
And you know what? It was nice because Quinn Hughes was able to rest 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was able to rest for a good 3 minutes just so he can what's it called? Pass the puck to PD, who lets go of the puck in the offensive zone. And before I go on to a quick rant, did you have any words about how the Canucks play on during overtime?
Yeah, well, St. Louis is so fast. Yeah, Holloway's fast. Kyrie's fast. Thomas is fast. I think even like I think Neighbors is pretty fast. So they just have a lot of more burners than the Canucks do. So I was worried a bit about OT for sure. You're right. I actually think Lankinen made the initial save on the original wraparound, but it's
It
when
was
the
the
guy
poking.
poked it.
Hmm.
But you're right. Lankinen was smart. He didn't move his glove. He knew exactly what he was doing. So that extended the game a little bit. And I mentioned it right off the opening, Mark. I rewatched the play because it was the game-winning goal right before we met online here. And yeah, PD, DeBrusque, and Hughes had three different opportunities to bring the puck over the line, and they didn't. And I get it. You're trying to control the puck, kind of what they did against whoever they beat in overtime a week ago. Remember? So I get that they want to play a possession game. You don't want to give up the puck, but I'm not gonna. It's yeah, PD. His game was up and down, kind of like Hughes's, and yes, he was the puck who gave up the puck. I think DeBrusque went for a really slow line change, and then by the time Bester jumped on, now you had a full-fledged 2-on-1. So. Um, yeah, whether you say that the Canucks should have lost that because St. Louis was technically the better team, but it just felt like after Bester scored it with 2.5 seconds left, it was one of those games where I was almost thinking, Mark, the narrative is going to be that goal is going to be the goal that propelled the team in the playoffs, right? Because then they're going to win in
Oh,
overtime.
100%.
Yeah. So, and there's still time to do that. I know you're going to talk about the standings in a bit and just how tight it is. It's tight, but no one's tied anymore. So there's at least a bit of separation, although everyone's played a different number of games, so it's not the best comparable overall. But yeah, the game overall entertaining. Would have loved to see the Canucks win, but also I can't shake the feeling that this just proves to me, on one hand, maybe that you get in, anything can happen, but for me, it's more of a, it's going to be a slog to try and beat four really good teams, let alone two, just to get out of your conference or your division.
Oh, of course. I completely agree with everything that you said.
Mm.
Two things I want to talk about regarding overtime that I
Sure.
found pretty interesting. The first one that you actually already said in the beginning of the stream was I'll 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 single out the 2-on-1 with I believe
Sure.
Pete and Hoglander. Not Pete and Hoglander. Sorry,
Hughes.
Quinn Hughes and Hoglander,
Yeah.
where I felt like Quinn Hughes could have passed that
Mm-hmm.
to Hoglander, and I think
Yeah.
in terms of decision making, like I'm not gonna bag on them too much because at the end of the day he played just under 31 minutes,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
it's I can't even skate for like one lap around the rink without getting tired, let alone half an hour. But I feel like his will to want to be the one to make the play, I think it kicked in too much during overtime.
Right.
And obviously as Canucks fans, we're so used to him carrying the game and carrying the team. It's very obvious to really like see him be the reason why we win, especially
Mhm.
when the puck is on his stick. But
Yep.
it was kind of a tough watch because I was getting the feeling that he didn't trust his teammates.
That's a really good way of putting it because who else would you say is a game breaker? Besser recently, Petey can be, but really in terms of true game breakers, Mark, that's such a good point because I think it's an extension of a point that we brought up. The fact that, yeah, maybe he did too much, but I never immediately made the leap to maybe he doesn't trust his teammates because it's like, well, I've never been the best in a group of anything that I'm in, except for maybe just talking about myself. But I could see where he thinks that he might want to think that he has to do it. And just to back it up, don't get me wrong. 95% of the time, when Quinn Hughes puts the team on his back, it works out. There's a reason why he won the Norris. There's a reason why he would have won the Norris if he didn't get hurt this year. There's a reason. So many things why he's the captain and blah blah blah. So 95, even more, 99, 98% of the time it works. But this was the one time it didn't, Mark, and it's just magnified because of the implications of this game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying if we miss the playoffs, it's because of Hughes in this one game. No, I'm not saying that at all. Don't get me wrong. But I just think it's magnified a little bit. So sorry, I didn't mean to jump in on your point, but I agree. I agree. It seems like that's a wonderful way of putting it. That maybe you can't blame him for wanting to win for the team, not for himself. He's always a team guy, the way he talks. But yes, maybe knowing he's the best, he might not trust his teammates. I think that's an excellent point.
Oh, that's yeah, and great point from you as well. It's like I'm not singling him out for like the being the reason why we lost this game. If
Yeah.
anything, if I were to single out anything other than I see from chat all of the times where we gave up 2-on-1, which I will say, for at least two of those odd man rushes, Quinn Hughes was the reason why they weren't even able to get a shot on goal. But soon after that goal review happened, when we were cycling the puck in the neutral zone and PD had the puck and had the chance to carry the puck over.
Yep.
He turned over the puck, and I'm not gonna bag on him for turning over the puck because there was
Yep.
3 Blues players on him. But yeah, there's nothing you can do. Puck's already over the line, but
Yep.
and the puck is no longer on your stick. What
Yep.
he did afterwards, though, and I'm not too sure if anyone actually caught this. He turns the puck over and then shakes his head.
Yep. You could see
He
him.
shakes his
Yeah.
head and he's like, "Oh no!" And he takes like 2 extra seconds or like 1 to 2 seconds to start the back check, but
Yeah.
you already know that his demeanor is gone. Like his body language is, "Oh man, I messed up," which I feel like is what he's been telling himself this entire season. Like it was sort of proven in like all of the post media after the All-Star break, where he's been the toughest person on it, like towards himself.
Yeah.
But the implications of this game was so tough to lose the puck and not back check hard enough, and once again, the Blues go into an odd man rush and we lose 4-3, and it's tough because obviously, sure, we got a point. I'm very very happy that we got a point, especially against the Blues. That point does put us, I believe, ahead of the Flames, but I don't know. I have I have lots of words about this game before we go on to this second period of the stream, but before I go on to that, did you have any last thoughts about the game, Clay?
Yeah, just that thought. I usually do goal breakdowns when the Canucks win because people like it when the Canucks win. I enjoy it. But you're right. I'm just looking at the breakdown from that overtime play. So the first time Hughes passed it to PD and PD couldn't gain the zone. He pulls it back. He gives it to DeBrusque, who then passes it to Hughes on the bench. Remember this? And I think he expected a give and go, right? Because he gave it to Hughes and then he was going to take the zone, but Hughes actually didn't pass it, so DeBrusque had to stop. And then Hughes recycles to PD. That's when he gives it away. You're right. He was 1-on-3. And then when everything breaks out of there, Holloway goes back towards his net. And then both PD and DeBrusque take Holloway, leaving Broberg alone. DeBrusque then peels off to the bench. PD stays on Holloway, not Broberg, and that forces Besser jumping off the bench to try and catch up to Broberg, which he had no chance because Brock's A, not fast in the first place, and B, Broberg had a 5-foot head start. So PD's tired. A quick, but you're right. Over OT 3-on-3 against a fast team. One hesitation. I like what you said. Just the 2 extra steps or 1 extra second, and you're dead, right? So yeah, not blaming it on our stars. Like as much as I said, Hughes maybe overplayed a little bit, PD and whatever, but because Brock had a great game. So it's just one of those games where it could have gone either way. And that's, Mark, this is exactly why these two teams were tied in the standings. That's how even this game was. Goes to extra time. And yeah, it makes it a tiny bit tougher for the Canucks now. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially since like looking onto our schedule, this was supposed to be one of the easier games.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting how we bounce back from this. But yeah. Anyways, moving on to the second stream period where we're gonna quickly talk about the wild card race in the Western Conference. Looking to support an up and coming media company with over 30 young journalists and analysts across Canada. If you got a few bucks to spare, head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/thegameovernetwork. You'll find several tiers with awesome rewards and perks for helping us grow. Get exclusive access, behind the scenes content, Discord benefits, merch discounts, opportunities to provide feedback, and even join us live for special shows where you can interact with the hosts as we launch new ways to enhance your experience. Not able to pitch in financially? No worries. Neither can I. We have a free tier, so you don't miss out. If you want to help us in other ways, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, and share our content on your social media. But yeah, I think my ad read voice is starting to get better, but that's
That was
a
good.
small
I
compliment
like
on
when
me.
you said, neither can I. Do you say that every stream, or did you just add that in today?
uh
That was funny.
no, every stream. I won't lie. That's every stream. I try to I like to make myself laugh, especially during bad games like this. But yeah, so Western Conference race, the wildcard race. So if you guys in chat don't know, the Flames, who were once losing against the Devils tonight, came back 5-3. So they were losing 2-3, but then won. And now I believe, even though we got a point, what's it called? We are still ahead of them in the race. Let me just pull up the numbers, unless you have them in front of you, Clay.
Yeah, St. Louis is one ahead of us, and we're one ahead of Calgary. But St. Louis has played the most games, 70. We have 69, and Calgary has 68. So technically, we could leapfrog St. Louis with our game in hand, but then Calgary can leapfrog us with their game in hand. So if everyone wins outright, which they won't, but it's the best way to compare, technically Calgary would get the final playoff spot right now. Which is crazy.
That's interesting. And honestly, like, the way that Dustin Wolf has been playing for Calgary is it's great. Like, I think the Calder race between him and Lane Hudson and Celebrini, it's a tough race, and I think Wolf is what's it called? I saw Zach Clarke, the other Game Over host for Game Over Vancouver, tweet this, where if it wasn't for Dustin Wolf, the Flames would be playing like the San Jose Sharks in a sense. But yeah, it's really close. Like, especially since even if Calgary in their next game, if they lose in overtime, they still have more regulation wins than us, right?
Yes, they do. By one. Yeah.
By one.
Yep.
And I think the dark horse in this is Utah, in all honesty. Right. And it's... Before I say my thoughts, what do you think about this race? Like, without... Sorry, let me rephrase it. Without your Canucks bias, who do you think makes it out?
I think it's going to be either the Canucks or St. Louis, even though Calgary statistically has the best, as we talked about. I separate in 2 tiers. I think St. Louis and Canucks are in 1 tier. And I really think, not just because I hate Calgary, but I think Calgary and Utah are in the 2nd tier. I think if Demko comes back healthy, I like the Canucks' chances. I do think Demko is good enough, if he's healthy, to steal 2 games, right, before the end of the year. I really do. And maybe that's 3 or 4 points that we wouldn't have got. Even Mark, coming into this game, I put the playoff bar at 92 points. Some said 91, some said 90, some said whatever. Everyone, there's no scientific formula, right? But I say 92 points. And coming into this game, when the Canucks had 14 games left, I said they would have to go 7-4-3. That's 3 games over 500. That's 17 points in 14 games, and that gets you to your 92. So 7-4-3. True 500, that's only 7-7, right? Because you know how it works is 4 regulation losses and 3 extra time losses. So in my theory, the Canucks only burned an overtime loss tonight. So they still have to go 7-4-2 now, which is still 7-6, which I think is doable. There's your 14 points to get you. Sorry, 7-4-2, get 16 points, get you to 92. So I know what the odds say. But they're saying if St. Louis wins in regulation and we don't get a point, then their odds shoot up to 50. Ours go down to whatever 20. I don't know what the odds are now that we actually got a point out of this game. I would love to say the X factor is a healthy Demko, but that might be my rose-colored glasses. Like, St. Louis by stats is supposed to be the favorite, and they have the easiest schedule of the 4 teams by far.
That's fair. I had a quick laugh. Canada rules, America rules in chat says Anaheim will
Yeah.
take wildcard 2. Honestly, if that happens, I'll go to Disneyland this year. But
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right in terms of the Canucks and the Blues being, I guess, the two teams that could potentially make it into the wildcard slot. I
Mm.
think I think Jordan Binnington's game after the All-Star break. Sorry, I keep saying All-Star break. The Four Nations break. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
After the Four Nations break has been a game changer.
Yeah.
And they do also have, in general, just more wins than
Yep.
both the Canucks and the Flames, with three wins ahead of them.
Yeah.
I think it's I do somewhat agree with you with the Demko statement, but I feel like if they bring Demko back, he's going to be the backup behind Lankinen.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't see them starting Demko. If they do, I feel like that would be the biggest mistake, not only for the implications of the season,
Yeah.
but his career overall.
Are you worried about injury risk, or he's not his play isn't up to par, or both?
Both,
Okay.
I would say. I think
Yeah.
the Canucks really need to find a healthy balance with Demko, where obviously you don't want him to be cold going into the playoffs.
Right.
Obviously, though, he is the one that has the playoff experience compared to Lankinen, just because I believe it was Juicy Saros that played the majority of, or if not all, the games in the playoffs for
Right.
the Predators. But I think, like, realistically, the only reason why we made it to overtime was because Lankinen didn't give up a single goal in the first period. I think he's been our savior this entire season, and to give up that starting position that he has 100% earned
Yeah.
to Demko,
Yeah.
it's a tough ask, I'd say, especially since he did just sign a new contract.
Sure. What about the
Yeah.
adage? And maybe, obviously, context matters. Depends on the type of injury. Depends on how good your backup is. But you know how, especially in football, they always talk about the starting quarterback should never lose his job due to injury, right? And it was interesting. Rick Tocchet, I'm not sure if you heard it, Mark, today in his pregame interview, he said that he doesn't believe that Demko needs to back up Lankinen for a couple games once he's ready, mind you, once he's fully ready. So I guess my point is, it might not be against New Jersey on Monday, maybe, or the Rangers on Saturday, but maybe later in the trip, Demko is ready to go, and they're not gonna make him sit on a ball cap on the bench, because he can do that in the press box and eat popcorn. I think once he's ready to go, I hear what you're saying. Lankinen has he's earned the right to start, but I just have this funny feeling, as much as I like Lankinen, that they're going to do the opposite of what you think is wise, and they're going to put Demko in as soon as he's ready, with the thought that he's a top 5 goaltender in the world when he's on. Lankinen is a decent starter, a nice story, but what's going to give you the best chance to win? And God forbid, something happens to him, right, long term.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
No,
we'll see. I don't know. It's very fascinating. This whole year has been fascinating, brother.
No, it's a very to think that we'd be in this position in the beginning of the year. Like, if at the beginning of the year we were all so certain that Seelovs would just be starting for us when Demko was out, because we signed. It was Nikita Tolopilo, right? No, not Tolopilo.
No, Asku, Kokuni. I can't even say his name. You mean the guy that we just signed 2 days ago?
No, not the guy that we signed 2 days ago. But there was a goalie that we signed, Jerry Patera. Yeah, so we signed Jerry Patera to potentially be a backup for Seelovs while Demko was out.
Yeah.
But because we expected Demko to be out a lot longer than we have anticipated, that's when we signed Lankinen to that 1-year deal, which was close to a minimum deal too. So the fact that now we're talking about, is he going to potentially replace Demko as a starter? It's an interesting period to be in, Clay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Skytrain Connect Alfred in chat says, it would be better if Demko would start the rest of the season when he's healthy. At least Lankinen can get some rest and maybe be the starter in the playoffs. Sorry, Demko.
Yeah.
That just depends if you make the playoffs.
No,
Honestly,
that's true.
like
Demko
I
might have a yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm not even
I-
thinking about the rotation in the playoffs. I just want to make it at this point.
Yeah. What a neat problem to have, right? Let's say Demko, just like last season, if Demko plays a couple games in the last week of the year, right? And then you have a decision to make. And sure enough, Demko gets hurt in the very first game against Nashville last year at home. And then Shelovs takes the ball and runs with it. I forgot about Yuri Patera. That's funny. I totally forgot we had him.
Yeah, because I think Nikita Tolopilo even replaced him as a starter for Abbotsford.
Okay.
Yeah. At least from what I've been seeing.
Can you play net?
Huh? You know what? I feel like I told you this last time too. I wanted to be a goalie when I grew up playing hockey because when I was a kid, the Canucks goalie growing up was Dan Kluche, and he was never in net because he was always injured. So I was like, you know what? Give me 10 years. I will be the backup to Alex Old. But my parents saw the price of pads.
That's
and
right.
They
You did tell me
immediately
this.
were like, "Yep, no, this is a bad."
Yeah, there aren't a lot of Filipino goaltenders in the NHL right now. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. It depends though, because you do need size, and I don't think Filipinos have that size. But
no, they'd be the quickest goaltenders in the world probably, but
100%.
But not the biggest, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But we digress. I digress.
Very fair. I actually see a comment in chat where Robert Canessa says that they need to take Garland off PP1, and that's actually the topic of the third period, is just like all of the line changes in with the Canucks right now. But before we get into that, if you guys are enjoying the show, you guys probably want more of this, right? Just a reminder to please hit this like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you are alerted when we go live. If you are tuning into our podcast, please drop a 5-star review or leave us a positive review or rating. If you really like what we're doing, follow us on your favorite social media platforms. You can find the Game Over Network on Blue Sky at thegameovernetwork.com, on TikTok and Twitter at the Game Over NHL, and on Instagram, Threads, and LinkedIn at Game Over Network. Clay, was there any socials that you wanted to quickly plug before we get into the third screen period?
Yeah, thank you. I split my socials up. Half of it's Canuck stuff, half of it's Faith Family Ministry. So for the Canuck stuff, it's simply on X, it's Canuck Clay, and same name on YouTube. So that's where I have everything. Thank you.
Perfect. Sounds good. So yeah, I just want to talk about the lines.
Yep.
So obviously Garland comes back into the line. So originally, chat, I want to talk about the Quinn Hughes, Tyler Myers, and then Marcus Patterson and Philip Hronek lines, but I want to essentially just talk about the lines overall because it's very easy to talk about since they changed so often.
Yeah.
I think obviously this might have to do with Garland being back in the lineup and Lekkerimäki not being in the lineup anymore, but I do not like Garland on power play 1 at all. I think obviously you can't, like, if Garland's in, Lekkerimäki's out, but the lineup that they had last game against the Jets, I think was one of the best power play ones that we had.
What was it again?
So it was DeBrusk at the point on net, with Besser at the bumper, and then you have Lekkerimäki and Patterson at the wings with Quinn Hughes as the QB. I think that was amazing because you have two of the best snipers on the team where they should be.
Yeah.
But then when you switch Lekkerimäki for Garland, Garland's game has changed where he isn't that much of a pure sniper anymore. He's more of he plays like a rat.
Yeah, to get around the front of the net. Exactly.
He'll do his best to be in front of the net, and he'll play the puck behind the net whenever possible.
Yeah.
But I don't like that play on power play 1. I'm sorry. I think we should put him on PP2 and just play a pure crash to net style play, where they have, let's say, they have Dak, they have Piasuti, They have Hronik, who his only job is to shoot the puck and make sure
Yep.
people get the rebound. Like that's all you need. And
Right.
I think you should replace Garland. Like if Mackey's not playing, replace Garland with Kiefer Sherwood
Mm-hmm.
because he's a right-handed shot who, sure, his shot is not close to anywhere compared to like Besser and Mackey's shot, but it's something. We've seen it multiple times this season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Power play 2, usually in a typical thing, power play 2 only gets 30 to 40% of the time. They usually get the second minute, if that. Sometimes they get pulled off for the first unit once again. And I know, at least for the Canucks, it's always been a very direct power play. Hronik usually shoots. I remember when Jake Virtanen used to be on power play 2 because he was a good skater. He'd just go to the net, right? Guys like Brandon Sutter, who would, if he got power play time, he would just go to the net. So Roussel and all those guys back in the day. So I would always think that, and even this year, a guy like Sherwood, they're not all puck handlers. They're just get to the net, one pass and shoot. Whereas the top line, especially with Hughes and with Petey, there's a lot of when Miller was there, a lot of passing, sometimes overpassing, but these guys are creative offensive players that you don't want to stymie. So having said that, though, you're right. Garland is not a threat from that side. At least Lekharmaki's got a one-timer, or he's got a good snap and wrist shot. So he would be more of a threat on that one-timer side. And then, yeah, you're right. Put Garland as the bumper. You don't have to be big to be the bumper. You just got to, net front. You just got to be able to get your nose dirty a little bit, and he's willing to do that. So I completely agree with you. However, Lekharmaki wasn't even an option tonight. So who do you put there on that right side, on that left side, if you want to keep the same thing? And I guess your only choices as righties are Besser, but he's in the bumper. So then, is it Garland? Is it Sherwood, or is it who am I missing? Sherwood, Garland, Besser, and who's our fourth righty?
Ahmed?
Brain fart.
No, Ahmed's lefty.
Who's our fourth righty? Garland? Yeah, because with Lekharmaki out,
we don't have that many right-handed players at all.
Alman and Carlson, but he's not a righty. I don't think so.
Mm-mm. He's
I'm
left-handed.
just trying to. Yeah, just thinking when he got nailed by Holloway, if he fell on his left side or his right side.
No, he fell on his right side.
Okay,
But he's
a lefty. I'm pretty sure he's a lefty. Otherwise, they would have made a big deal.
No, he's a ready. He's a ready.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I stand corrected. Okay. Yeah. So Carlson's probably not your choice there. Sherwood, even though he scored, not your choice there. So I guess that's why Garland was there today.
Yeah, and okay, what do you think about just if that's the case? If you want Garland to be on power play 1,
Yep.
what do you think about just switching him and Besser? And instead of Besser being in the bumper, you just have him play on the wing, waiting for a sniper or one-timer.
Yeah, although it was nice to see him start to snipe last couple of games, but that's kind of been missing from his game as well. So can you imagine before PD started to shoot again, you have two guys that would just double clutch every time. Like no matter if you go right point or left point, there's the guy not going to shoot. So I don't know. Everything we said, I don't mind Garland as the net front just being a pest. I don't mind Besser because Besser is so good market deflections and rebounds. Mm-hmm. So I kind of want him in the middle, not on the sides. And so in a perfect world, though, you're right. Yesterday looked good, or Tuesday, because Lekharmaki was there, but they didn't get a lot of opportunities. But yeah, he looked fine. He looked fine. This is a tough one. Isn't it funny how we're worried about our power play and our penalty kill is like one of the best in the league now, top 8 or top 9, and you wouldn't have said that 2 years ago. It's so funny how it's turned now.
Yeah. Like our power play was so good last year, and our penalty kill was
2 years ago was the worst.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
I mean, I will say they insisted on playing JT Miller in the penalty kill when even though he's a great 2-way player, he commits too much on the PK. But I think having I feel like having our PK be purely just bot 6 players who know their role. Yeah. And I think that's the key thing. Players that know their role. Yeah. By having Bluger and Suter as their main 2 penalty killers, I think is what makes us so strong, because they know their role. They know that they're not the best players on the ice, but they're going to play their role as strongly as possible.
Sure.
And I think especially with the addition of like Marcus Persson,
Yeah.
with the big body that um, Elias Persson has as well, like
Hmm.
DPD, I think it's a weird position to be in, Clay. I
Yeah.
didn't see this.
I know, and then the forward lines. I know we're gonna get to the deep pairings too, but the forward lines, interesting because against Winnipeg, oh, you can do no wrong because all three of the four lines scored, but then you look at a game like tonight and hardly anyone scored. So the top line itself is kind of fascinating because it's PD, Hoglander, and Besser. They look great on Tuesday against Winnipeg. Today, Shorthouse made the point as the third period started that they only had one shot between the three of them. Although I didn't think that they played that badly, and then Besser goes crazy, obviously, so he makes that line look better. But then the other three lines, Suter, Sherwood, and DeBrusque, a lot more quiet today than they were, although Sherwood had his goal. And then the third line of Bluger with O'Connor and Carlson, I barely noticed them. I don't know about you. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
notice Drew O'Connor tonight. And then that leaves you your fourth line of Oman between Joshua and Garland, which by pedigree shouldn't really be your fourth line. I know you list lines by the centers, right? So because Garland and Joshua are playing with Niels Ullmann, the worst of the four centers, PD, Suter, and Bluger. That's why they are the fourth line. But I thought they were okay. I think they created a little bit, but certainly not the same conviction that the forward lines had on Tuesday. I'm not even sure that's the best mix, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know what the best. We haven't had the best mix ever since JT Miller. Like they're still trying to figure it out.
100%, especially since Filipino is out.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
it's been tough um finding what the best lines are. Really quickly, Canada Rules just reminded me that we signed Desharnais for his PK ability. Um, I completely forgot about Desharnais in general. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't even track. Usually I'm interested in how ex Canucks do, especially the more high profile ones like Toffoli or Tanev, right?
Mhm.
But I guess Desharnais, he was here for half a season, so we're not too worried
Mm,
about him. Yeah.
yeah, he had like one or two good hits, but it is what it is.
Okay, so I
Anyways,
know. Yeah,
oh
yeah.
sorry. No, you
You want
first.
to
You
talk about the
first. You
D
first.
pairings, right? You want to talk about the D
Yes.
pairings? Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
Did I cut you off from anything though?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Cool. But yeah, D pairings. It was funny because I put this in my notes for today's stream because I was gonna talk about how great it was for Quinn Hughes and Tyler Myers to be aligned and Philip Hronik finally being able to run his own line with Marcus Persson. But I think I think it's still the way to go. I think it's
Yeah.
definitely still the way to go. Unfortunately, this game was really bad from Tyler Myers, which in turn reflects off of Quinn Hughes because if Myers makes a bad play, Quinn Hughes will have to be the one that has to compensate. But
Yeah, he has to go
it's
fix it.
yeah. But I think the lines are good right now, especially like I know Toch hates playing two left-handed defensemen at the same time.
Right.
But even if you look at the third pairing with DPD and Forbert and possibly Mancini, I think our defensive lines are starting to finally look good. In all
Yeah.
honesty.
When we got Marcus Pettersson, remember Hughes was still injured. It was the
Mhm.
exact same time Hughes got hurt in the Dallas game, and then we acquired Marcus Pettersson on that day. I think it was January 31st. So by default, Marcus Pettersson, and Philip Hronik were our top pairing for a little bit, and then you had some combination of Myers and Susie, Forbert, and this is this is before we traded Susie away. And remember, we didn't have Noah Jolson to anchor, either good or bad use of the word anchor to anchor the third pairing on the right. So there's so much flux. So when Hughes comes back, you'd almost you're happy that Hronik showed well without Hughes for those 15 games, whatever that Hughes missed, or 12 games, because Hronik, yeah, as you said, was shown that he could anchor his own pair. So you can actually split them up. Now we saw them together. Anytime the Canucks need offense, they put those two guys together, Hughes and Hronik, and we saw some good shift play from them as well. But I think that's another fascinating thing to consider if the Canucks make the playoffs is, do you start with Hughes Hronik or do you start with Hughes Myers? Because when Myers is good, that could be a dynamic pairing for sure. Like Myers isn't afraid to do his own forays into end rushes, and then then PD and Hronik, Marcus Pettersson's never going to be a point accumulator. So he's your stay-at-home guy, and Hronek can play both styles. So whatever way you mix up the top four, I think it's situational for sure. And then you're right about the lefties, but when you have Mancini out, you have DPD and Forbert, and one of them is playing on their off wing. Yeah, an
Yeah, and
offside, I should say.
I remember reading this, but when he was playing in Sweden,
Yeah.
DPD was actually playing on the right hand side for a lot of the time. So I
Mm.
think it's good that he is used to playing on his offside, and like he's not whenever just to quickly talk about DPD, he isn't really
Mhm.
one to hold the puck for too long, which
Right.
it works out if you're playing on your offside, because if you're defending, it doesn't really make that much of a difference.
Right. 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 I hear what you're saying. Yeah. 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 Do you like what you've seen from Mancini so far?
I do. I think he's very green. Like
Yeah.
he still has a little bit of way to go, but I definitely do see him becoming like a
Yeah.
top 6 staple. I don't see
Yeah.
him breaking into the top 4 at all.
Yeah, but if you
But
can hold down the third pairing, yeah, on the right side, I'll take it.
oh, 100%. Like his IQ, I think, is ahead of his game
Yeah.
in the sense that he knows exactly what to do regarding um both his defensive and offensive play. He just
Yeah.
doesn't have the skill to reflect that just yet.
That's a
Which,
good point.
that's
Yeah.
kind of how I felt about Sudi, like Pia Sudi.
Sure.
Like last season, his IQ, in my opinion, was one of the best on the team. Hence why he played a lot with Bester and JT Miller.
Mhm.
So he's finally starting to realize his potential, and I think Manchidi has that chance to really break into the top 6.
Yeah.
And kind
Yeah.
of the rules does great point. Tom Verlander is a right-handed defenseman as well.
When Myers' contract expires in 2 seasons, you could go Hughes, Hronek, Marcus Pettersson, Verlander, and then DPD and Mancini. That's pretty good. Like
That
with a
is
lot of
really
potential.
good.
Yeah, but it's funny. Just before he wrote that, which is a great point about Verlander, I think it's clear that right now Tocchet will not, unless we're proven wrong. I don't think he's going to play DPD Mancini at the same time, but he's always going to have Forbert as one of the one, and then either Mancini or DPD on the right side. As you said, DPD can play his offside. I would love to see DPD and Mancini play together, but maybe it's too risky right now because they are both so young.
Yeah, I agree. Like
Yeah.
people bag on Forbert's game as much as
Oh, he's
possible.
good. I mean, he's
Yeah,
fine.
like he's fine. I think I put him in the same category as Susi, where
Yep.
even though he might have a bad game, he's still a
Yep.
vet, and
Yep.
the amount of people that underrate vets who are role players on the team, I feel like is overlooked way too much.
Ian Cole.
Yeah, Ian Cole. Like people bagged
Yeah.
on Ian Cole all the time in the play. I mean, granted, he gave up so many own goals, but
Yeah.
like he was extremely solid.
Yeah.
And not only was he solid in terms of his game, but so many players talked about his locker room influence. And that's
Right.
someone where, especially if you're going to be sharing the ice with him, you want
Yeah.
someone that has gone through the highs and lows of NHL hockey. You want someone who at least understands the game emotionally, because that's not something a lot of young players understand. Is
Yeah.
that like if momentum swings, you have to be able to adjust your game accordingly. So yeah, I agree in your point about Forbert.
Yeah, and the other thing about Forbert too is he stands up for his teammates. He was the one to challenge Jason Dickinson after Dickinson squashed Hito against the boards, right, in the Chicago game. I heard on the radio at the end of the period. Do you remember when in the second period or at the end of regulation? I can't remember which one it was, where PD was going at it with Neighbors a little bit, or I think it was Neighbors. They were slashing it, and I heard Shorty say, "And Forbert comes and challenges Neighbors or whatever." So, yeah, consummate professional and great loyal teammate. You can never have more of those, too many of those guys, despite the Canucks trading away one of them in Susie. But the great point, Susie, Cole, Forbert, all kind of cut from Luke Shen, kind of all cut from that same cloth.
100%. And
Yeah.
I'll use this to transition into our overtime period of the stream.
Sure.
Which to everyone who is new to this channel, this is essentially where we just open up the chat to questions. But I just have one question for you afterwards. But before we
Sure.
get to that, what better way to support your love than by wearing it? Game Over's apparel line has officially dropped, featuring 3 unique designs. Whether you were drawn to the nostalgic views of our retro skater design, want to make a bold statement with our established design, show off your love for goalies with our live and die by the goalie design, or you just need another coffee mug, we have you covered. Designed by Brady from Game Over Winnipeg. Scan the QR code on stream now to check out our apparel store. Help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while representing your community. I will be honest though, I forgot the question I was going to ask you. I got distracted by my own ad read.
Yeah, your ad is important. You gotta peddle that merch, man.
I know.
What it's like.
You know. Hey man, the company needs money. I need money, but I'm just kidding. Shoot, I'm trying to remember that question.
Do you have to do lines, playoffs?
It was lines. Oh, okay. Actually, you know what? HSM High School Musical Fangirl Gaming actually has a really good question. Where would you rather the Canucks go after a good winger or center this offseason if they can only afford one?
Center.
Center. Yeah, me
Center.
too.
Especially if you're going to lose P.S. Suter.
Oh, you know what? If he gets a big contract, he deserves it.
I agree.
I
agree.
We can't afford him, but he's someone who's given so much to this team that I will be eternally grateful for him. Like
Yeah.
I think he took a supposed pay cut too, right? Like he could have been offered so much more in the what's it called? Last offseason, from what I remember.
Yeah, maybe. Well, he signed for 2 years, right? This is the end of his 2 years. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, right. I'm thinking about someone else. My apologies.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
Yeah,
like
that's
I
right.
already know that his contract right now is way too low for what we value him at.
Right.
But I will say though, if he gets paid like let's say 3.5 or 4 mil,
Yep.
I assume that he would be getting paid that amount to play for it, like for the second line, instead of just being a mid-6 wing center.
Right.
You think?
I see what you're
Right?
saying. Yeah, because I've heard some people say that with the salary cap going up, someone might offer him 4 to 4.5 million. How can the Canucks afford that? Right.
True.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, and I mean like we still have we have the Ekman Larson cap hit on us too, which does
Yep.
restrict us slightly, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. Who do you suggest would be an upgrade for Suter though?
Oh, I'd have to look at the free agents. I don't know who's like a realistic one that the Canucks could afford.
Maybe
have-
McKinnon, but that's about it.
Wait, Nathan McKinnon?
Wait, I don't even think he's not
he's not
restricted.
No.
I don't think he's a free. No, he's not a free agent going.
No. There are some, but they're all old. I looked, and then the young ones, I'm not sure. So maybe the Canucks are kind of working behind the scenes, or they have guys under their radar. I know there's some discussion today or the last couple of days of they end up offer sheeting a young center who's still an RFA, but who needs a new contract. The offer sheet worked well for St. Louis. We just saw it tonight. Broberg and Holloway were both instrumental in their win tonight.
True. Like I will say, the one thing that makes me happy that they were big in this game was that the Oilers don't have them anymore.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But
Yet
yeah.
the Oilers are safely in the playoffs, and we're struggling to make the wild card.
Hey, you know what? Any downfall is a good downfall for me.
That's fair.
But
That's fair.
speaking about RFAs though, I'm looking at the list and it is what's it called? It is pretty spicy
Okay.
because you have, just to name a few people, you have Evan Bouchard,
Yeah.
you have JJ Peterka, Matthew Nyes, Capo Caco.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I'm just gonna say his name because I see it here. Luke Hughes. I mean, obviously Luke Hughes is gonna get signed because he's just coming off of his rookie deal. But
Right.
do you see us offer sheeting someone? Because I feel like that's something that the Canucks might be able to do, considering how bad the UFA market is.
Yep, and I think I heard Lawrence Gilman, ex Canucks assistant GM with Sekeres and Price, saying the exact same thing. Mark, he says with the salary cap going up, and when you accumulate a third round pick here, or whatever is the cost for offer sheeting someone, right? You wonder if it's the right time and place, and the fact that St. Louis was successful with their offer sheets to Broberg and Holloway might make a GM more apt to try it. Who knows? Yeah, because I'm not saying it's him, but I look at centers like Jack Roslovic out of and guys like that who are in the mid-20s because they're still at the end of their RFA deal, not the end of their UFA deal. But I just use that name because I remember I used to like him a lot. So I don't know who else is out there as an RFA center, but just
Jack
by
Roslovic
definition.
is a UFA actually.
Oh, I didn't even know
Yeah,
that. Okay.
he's unrestricted.
So, but yeah, generally RFAs are going to be after a 3 year and a 3 year or whatever. So yeah, they'll be 23, 24 years old, and that's still young. That's right in the Canucks window right now. So who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I'm
Yeah.
looking at this RFA list. I don't
Yeah.
want anyone.
No one
In
good.
all honesty,
Like, who are the centers
like,
on there? Who are the centers on
okay,
there?
so let's see. Yeah, Matt Duchene, John Tavares,
Yeah.
Sam Bennett,
Yeah.
Mikhail Granlund can play center. Yeah, Brad Marchand. I don't want any of them. Yeah, Brock Nelson.
Yeah. Okay, those are pretty old. Yeah.
Like it's sure if you wanna, if they're willing to take a pay cut in order to play for a contending team, then I will 100% take it because they think that the Canucks are a contending team.
Right.
And you know what? That gives me hope.
That's worth it. Yeah, that's worth it alone.
But
that's so funny, man.
Yeah.
That's good.
Hey,
I
man,
like that.
like well, the one thing that I will say, the one thing I see from all of the Canucks in their post game interviews or like post practice interviews is that all of them still have hope in this season.
Yeah.
Like even though Canucks media, even though I myself might bag on the fact that our chances are so low now, I think the locker room morale is high.
Right.
I personally think it's really high.
So you've been in my show a couple times when I've asked the question, if the Canucks do make the playoffs, just to go full circle to the very start of the show now, if the Canucks make the playoffs, do you take it as the guys deserve it? Do you take it as you get in and anything can happen? Do you take that as we're going to get wiped in the first round? Like which way are you thinking? And I'll add a fourth one. Do you think, oh my gosh, this would be the most hilarious thing because despite all the drama from this season, the fact that we are still contending with 4 weeks to go, that's pretty amazing. Maybe that's not one of your options. That's just kind of a narrative or I wanted to paint their picture. So if the Canucks make the playoffs, yeah, good for the guys. Winning, anything can happen, or we're gonna get smoked. Like which way are you thinking?
I think it's good for the guys. Okay. I think it's absolutely good for the guys. Like if we make the playoffs, I'm going to go full fan mode, and I'm going to be like, I hope we win the Stanley Cup because at the end of the day, this team has gone through so much adversity.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna talk about too many things that might disallow me from potentially working for the Canucks, but
yeah, that's
like
smart.
the Canucks have gone through so much this season. Especially, like you have the JT Miller behind the scenes locker room stuff that may or may not have happened. You have the
injuries
team,
galore.
Like injuries galore. Demko's gone. Quinn Hughes was gone for a bit. This was the one thing that I always told my friends last season is that the Canucks didn't really have much to play for last season. If that makes sense. Like the Oilers lost the coach and then they were like trying to fight back as hard as they can, while the Canucks, even though they weren't touted to be a contender, they were coasting through the season. The season was fairly easy for them. So when they reached that level of challenge that happened in the playoffs, and I'm not discrediting anything that happened in the playoffs because you have the 4-1 catch up against the Oilers, you had the catch up against the Predators. So many good memories in that playoff season, but at the end of the day, they didn't have that adversity. So I feel like if we make the playoffs, we have fought so hard to be here.
Yes.
Let's play as hard as we can, and no matter what happens, this season will at least end off on a positive note.
That is such a good point because last year was drama free. Last year was drama free. Everyone was healthy. Everyone got along, setting like PDO records for the first half of the season. And then your goalie goes down, and yet it's a Cinderella story almost to get to the conference final. Like everything was so good last year. Everything, as you kind of outlined, and we don't want to say too much. Yes, because we both don't want to get in trouble. Everything hit the fan this year. So where's the truth? Where's the true Canucks team, right? Is it closer to the 23-24 team, which surprised everyone, but we're very healthy and very lucky? Is it more like this team where a lot of drama, still good character though, and the guys trying to pull through, but simply not talented enough? Or, as always, is the truth somewhere in the middle? Is it closer to the last year's team, or is it closer to this year's team? I don't know. I really don't know.
Man. I'm excited. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited, but I will just like at least leave off the stream on a more humorous note. It's been a lot of a lot of snip snap, like as a Canucks
What does that
fan.
mean? Is that a cool new?
No,
what does that
okay.
mean?
So have you seen The Office before?
My kids watch it. I don't, but I know what the show is. Yeah.
So when people say snip snap snip snap, there's an episode where Michael Scott gets a vasectomy and then reverses it, and then gets another vasectomy and then reverses it. So it's a lot of emotional and physical turmoil. That's how I feel like being a Canucks fan, Clay. Like, I'll be honest, like I'll give you a full rundown of me being like a Canucks fan. Like I was born in 1997. My name is Mark. There's a captain who was named the Canucks captain who I will not name.
Yeah.
But it already started off like on a poor note. Now, like being a Canucks fan as a kid, like I compared it to a toxic relationship in a sense where like it was a lot of up and down, no clear direction at all. But when we finally get into a relationship, which is 2011, you have so much. Like the Canucks are on a high. Like 2011 season's great. You have the Sedins and Ryan Kessler, who was the cover star of 2K11.
Yeah.
On that team, you have Bieksa. That was the equivalent of like in a relationship, I am being love bombed. Like I get flowers left and right. There is like little to no adversity. But as soon as you expect them to, say I love you, they lose in Game 7. And
so what was that, getting dumped then, or not? It's not that bad.
Not so much getting dumped. It's more so like, you know what? I see the potential in you. I see the potential in you. You can do this again. But from 2011 up until 2023, it's a lot of this is a toxic relationship where it's all promises, no delivery. This is great. I took a break from the relationship, which was when I moved to Toronto for 2 years. But when I was in Toronto, so I moved to Toronto in 2020. Do you remember what happened in the playoffs in 2020?
Yeah, bubble.
Yeah, bubble. We beat the Blues, right, in the first round.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So I see this from the other side of the country. I'm like, I think they're starting to turn around. So I moved back to Vancouver, and then the 2022-2023 season happens, and I'm like, oh man, this is the same thing.
Yeah.
But last season happened. They start love bombing me again, and now we are back to mediocrity. So that's how I feel like as a Canucks fan. It's a lot of emotional turmoil. It's a big roller coaster, but it's as long as I get my flowers, like my bouquet of flowers once a month.
Yep. And
that's all that matters.
Let me just say you're the first Canucks content creator, not even Canucks, you're the first content creator I know that has used the analogy of a vasectomy to describe their fandom of the Canucks or this season. We're in different places in life, Mark. You know where I'm going with this. I have my 3 kids already, so one of us could probably afford it more than the other, but we'll just leave it there. We won't touch that, literally or figuratively. How's that?
You know what, Clay? I 100% agree.
I love it.
That's a great place to end this post game show. My name is Mark. Tune in, I believe, at 11 p.m. on Clay's channel, both on Twitter and on YouTube. Where he will essentially be performing double duty for you guys and breaking down the game one more time. Any last words for me, Clay?
No, Mark, it's always great to return to Game Over and to hang out with you. Still watch the shows when I can and love. I know you guys are grinding, trying to build build a network. And so keep on going. And anyone who's here because of me, thank you. And I'll continue to pump your tires on my show tonight because I do appreciate how hard you guys work. And I appreciate that the commitment it takes, obviously, to do something like this. So I hope that the Canucks make the playoffs for the sake of our channels too, and our content and our engagement. So thanks for having me on. And I always love coming here. So thank you.
Of course. Have a good night, guys. Take care.